So we're going to talk about what is stigmata and why I'm talking in a horrible Italian accent for, I'm so sorry about what's about to come. This is... All right, so what is stigmata? So the word stigma comes from the Latin word stigma, and that is from the Greek word stigma.
Thanks.
I like it. Isn't that great? That breaks it down. So that means the mark of a pointed instrument, puncture, tattoo mark, or brand, which I did not know. So it's related to marks or tattoos, and that makes sense. And according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, stigmata in Christian mysticism are bodily marks, scars, or pains corresponding to those of the crucified Jesus Christ, that is on the hands, on the feet, near the heart, and sometimes on the head from the crown of thorns, or on the shoulders and back from carrying the cross and from the scourging with the whipping. So they are often presumed to accompany religious ecstasy. A stigmatic person may temporarily or permanently have one or more of these wound marks, which may be visible or invisible to others. From the 14th to the 20th century, more than 300 people were identified as having been stigmatized. And that's why I looked up the kind of the background of the word stigma, because I was that's interesting. I think that word is stigmatized.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so more than 60...
Because in general culture, we use stigmatized in such a different way. But yeah,
right.
Very cool.
So, more than 60 of those 300 persons were identified as saints in the Roman Catholic Church. And we're going to talk about one of those who also became kind of a cult leader. And his name is Padre Pio. And he is from Pietrelcina, Italy. And I will try not to offend all our Italian. We do have people who've listened from Italy. Sorry. I'm so sorry. So he was born Francesco Forgione on May 25th, 1887, peasant farmers. He came from a deeply religious family that attended mass daily, and he began seeing visions by the age of 5. The first being the apparition of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which I believe is the heart with the thorns around it, which would be kind of like, that'd be a cool thing to see. Then he had visions of the Virgin Mary, and he met his guardian angel, with whom he made a pact always to follow whatever missions God put before him while he was 5. Though he was very religious, his childhood was marked by illness. First gastroenteritis at 6. Then he caught typhoid fever at 10. He had a fever so high that his doctor informed his mother he had only hours to live. His mother, distraught as she was, still had to cook food for all the workers. So she made fried chiles. But the workers couldn't eat them. They were too spicy. But the smell of fried chiles lured sick Francis from his bed, and he ate them all. Then he returned to his bed, and he became very thirsty. His brother brought over, his brother brought over a bottle of milk, and instead of like the small sips that he had been taking, he downed the whole thing. But after that, all the signs of his fever disappeared and he became healthy again. So he ate a buttload of really spicy chilies and he beat typhoid fever when he was 10. So at that age, he decided that he wanted to be a monk. Some say that he met a monk that was out asking for alms in the countryside, and that's where he got the inspiration from. His parents supported the idea, but he needed more education than what his previous schooling had. So his father hired private tutors, traveling to America to pay for the bills. So he would, like, his dad left them, went to America, and was sending money back so he could get private tutoring. He continued to be sick and to battle demons. Father Gabriel Umworth said in his book on Padre Pio, the devil appeared to him under many different forms, as a big black cat, wild and threatening, or as a repulsive animal in the clear intention to frighten him, under the appearance of naked and provocative young girls who danced obscene dances, obviously to test the chastity of the young priest. However, the worst was when the devil took on the appearance of his spiritual director or poses Jesus, the Virgin Mary, or St. Francis. So as a young kid, he's seeing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Sure is. All right. At the age of 15, he entered the monastery of the Capuchin friars at Morcone, where he took the name Pio to honor Pope Pius I, whose relics he often saw at his local chapel. 2 years later, he became so sick he could only eat milk and cheese, which I'm not sure what sickness that is.
I have not had that sickness.
I mean, there are times where I kind of only want to have milk and cheese, but it's not a sickness. It's
No, usually it's gonna make me sicker.
sicker, yeah. So, still sick though. He still studied for the priesthood, and during this time, he had his first bilocation. Multiple eyewitnesses attested over the years that Padre Pio could be in multiple places at the same time. So this first time was a cold winter's night, January 11th, 1905, when while praying, Pio found himself transported to an elegant house where a young girl was being born. The Virgin Mary then appeared and told him, "I entrust to your care of this creature. She is an unpolished stone. Work in her, instruct her, make her shine as much as possible, because one day I want to adorn myself with her." He questioned her choice, as he wasn't even a priest, and she told him not to worry about this, and this girl would meet him at the Basilica of St. Peter. Then he whooshed back to where he was praying. 18 years later, that girl confessed to him at the Basilica of St. Peter. Crazy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Padre Pio explained these supernatural occurrences just as an extension of his personality. During World War II, there was a dramatic incident that occurred over San Giovanni Rotondo, a town that he had said he would protect. So as American bombers approached the city, ready to release their payload, a brown-robed friar materialized in the air ahead of the aircraft. And when this happened, all efforts to deploy the bombs failed. Later on, one of the pilots visited the friary and to his astonishment met the friar he had seen in the air. Spooky, huh? Mm-hmm. So Padre Pio was ordained in 1910. However, his illnesses kept him much at home. But this is the first year that he received the stigmata. While painful, they were only temporary. World War I came, and in 1915, he was drafted into the medical corps. But again, he was so ill that he was eventually discharged in 1918. Like they kept sending him, he kept coming back and sending him home. And then finally they were just like, "Get out of here. You were too sick, buddy."
Yeah, you're always a sickly dude.
You're a sickly. In August 1918, Padre Pio reported feeling the lance of Christ pierce and burn him. Witnesses who examined the resulting physical wound on his left side claimed it was 3 inches long and in the shape of a cross. Then in September, Padre received the stigmata while praying in a church. These were not temporary and remained visible the rest of his life. The wounds were said to have the odor of sanctity and always smelled of perfume or a floral aroma. So his wounds always smelled like roses, which is weird. Doctors who studied them described them as perfectly round. In 1919, the chief physician of the Civil Hospital of Barletta, Luigi Romanelli, studied the objects and reported, "The lesions on his hands are covered with a membrane that is reddish brown in color without any bleeding, swelling, or inflammation of the surrounding tissue. I am convinced without a doubt that the wounds are not just superficial. When I press my thumb together in the palm of his hand and my index finger on the back of his hand, I clearly perceive that a vacuum exists between them." X-rays had taken in 1954 showed no abnormalities. However, there were a course that said that the stigmata was a fraud. And Padre Pio was said to have purchased large amounts of carbolic acid and the caustic Veretrine. Pio said the carbolic acid was to clean healing instruments and the Veretrine was for a practical joke. Apparently, he wanted to make some friars sneeze or something with this very caustic substance. What ifs? So people traveled from afar to see Padre Pio's wounds. Other supernatural phenomena were attributed to him, including levitation and healing. He was said to go days without sleep or food besides the Eucharist. He could speak in tongues. His popularity increased and his charisma encouraged devoted followers. People would flock to his monastery on top of cliffs just to give him confession. There were so many people coming that the Vatican banned him from celebrating the Eucharist. They were starting to get afraid that he was getting too many followers. And then there were also some people being like, you can't have like these many people devoted to you and still be like a monk, a priest who has vows of chastity and obedience and being pious, right? But they reinstated his priestiness, whatever, in 1934.
Priesthood.
I don't know. They took away they reinstated him.
Yes.
And he was once again allowed to give mass. The Pope was encouraging people to visit him.
Okay.
Father in 1947, Father Karol Wojak. Oh man, my grandmother would come down and smack me at the face and not be able to say this one particular Polish name. But so this one particular Polish priest visited Padre Pio, and Padre Pio prophesied that he would attain the church's highest office, fulfilled in 1978 when he became Pope John Paul II.
Weird.
Yeah. Padre Pio opened a hospital in San Giovanni Rotondo in 1956 and became internationally famous, advising pray, hope, and don't worry. He, however, did continue to contract illnesses, including cancer, which he miraculously cured after 2 treatments. He had 5 rules for spiritual growth: weekly confession, daily communion, spiritual reading, meditation, and frequent examination of one's conscience. He was very opinionated about modesty and authentic spirituality, dismissing those in confessional who he deemed insincere or he thought just needed to get their shit together. I'm sure that is exactly how he phrased it. Just get your shit together and go. But he would also dictate how women dress. They put a sign on his confessional: by Padre Pio's explicit wish, women must enter his confessional wearing skirts at least 8 inches below the knees.
Whoa.
That's really long. I'd be tripping. So he died September 23rd, 1968. However, a few days before that, his stigmata disappeared, leaving no trace or scar. Dun, dun, dun. His funeral was attended by over 100,000 people. 300,000 people attended his beatification mass in 1999 by that same John Paul II. It is said after that mass, an Italian boy named Matteo Pio Colella recovered from a coma. Then Padre Pio was canonized and made a saint in 2002. So the main pilgrimage destination of where he made the hospital, that's where people go. After his death, it became a significant pilgrimage site. So they had to add on a new shrine that had a capacity for 6,000 people, and it had a parvis that could hold 30,000.
That's massive.
Yeah. Then the church is weird. In March 2008, the church decided to exhume Padre Pio so he could be put on display. So he died in 1968. So they decide in 2008 that it seems cool to take him out and put him on display. The body was described as being in fair condition, and Archbishop Domenico Umberto de Ambrosio, papal legate to the shrine in San Giovanni Rotondo, stated, "The top part of the skull is partly skeletal, but the chin is perfect and the rest of the body is well preserved. The stigmata was not visible. However, due to the decomp, they did make a silicone mask based on a photograph of his corpse instead of leaving his face out." It was nice of them. He was dressed in his brown Capuchin habit with a white silk stole embroidered with crystals and gold thread. Originally, the body was scheduled to only be on display until December 2008. However, due to the overwhelming demand of reservations and the fact that only 7,200 people a day could view his crystal coffin, the display was extended until September 2009. They said to see his uncorrupted body was a transcendent experience. The remains were moved to a golden crypt in 2010. It is estimated that over 9 million people have visited the body of Padre Pio since 2008. And if you do that, you can take home many souvenirs, including tiny water bottles that contain chemically perfumed water from the mountains. You can get some plastic statuettes that contain his story. There are some battery-operated votive candles, some calendars, and some cigarette lighters with his picture on them. That's really nice.
Classy.
Yep. So also he had these prayer groups that started the 1950s. Pope Pius VII called for this formation of everybody. Like, we want people doing prayer groups, right? So, and Padre Pio was like, we can do that. And so by the time of his death in 1968, the prayer groups had 68,000 members across 700 groups in 15 countries. And it continued to grow with approximately 3,300 registered groups in 60 countries as of 2013. The majority being, of course, in Italy. Following his canonization in 2002, a new television station named Padre Pio TV was launched in Italy, dedicated to his life and devotion.
Whoa.
Yeah, based at San Giovanni Rotondo, it broadcasts online through its own website and various internet platforms. So you can still log on to Padre Pio TV. There are a ton of foundations and places that are dedicated to him. And he was moved again when the remains of St. Pio were brought to the Vatican for veneration during the extraordinary Jubilee of Mercy in 2015 to 2016. Both him and St. Leopold were designated as saint confessors to encourage people to seek reconciliation with God. And they had like this weird like confession festival where they had like all these like wooden confessional booths set up outside the Vatican, like the kind of like kissing booths,
Mass confessionals.
But like it was mass confessionals.
Interesting.
With the corpses of these two saints there.
Yeah.
Church is kind of weird sometimes, man. I'm telling you. But yeah, so St. Pio is a patron saint of civil defense volunteers, and he is unofficially recognized as the patron saint of stress relief and the January blues, a designation given by the Catholic Inquiry Office in London. To honor Padre Pio's famous advice, pray, hope, and don't worry, they established Don't Worry, Be Happy Day. This event is held on the most depressing day of the year, which they identified as the Monday nearest to January 22nd.
Oh, that's random.
Isn't it? So random. I did not know that was, today I learned that was the most depressing day of the year.
Interesting.
Thank you, Catholic Church. Thank you, Padre Pio, for your stigmata. That did not smell bad.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't smell bad.
Okay, so that's the story of Padre Pio and his stigmata.
Devil's Trap Podcast is a Don't Get It production. Meow.
Devil's Trap Podcast is part of the Ship It Studios podcast network. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Devil's Trap Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Devil's Trap Podcast, Twitter at Devil's Trap Pod, or you can email us at devilstrap@devilstrappodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave reviews, and share with all your friends. We're at all your favorite podcast outlets and at devilstrappodcast.com. I'm Babe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.